Welcome guys to Twitch Chatter. Today we will be doing a Valorant agent guide and we will be covering all of the agent's abilities and doing a quick summary on what they do and how to utilize them. So let's go ahead and get into it. The first agent we're going to be talking about today is Brimstone. Brimstone might be one of the easiest agents to learn, and that's because of how straightforward its abilities are. One of the first abilities I do want to talk about, as you're seeing in the screen right now, is Sky Smoke, where Brimstone can choose 3 locations to block out with smoke clouds. This will block the enemy's vision and can provide a good way for you and your team to rotate around a certain area. The next ability I want to talk about is called Incendiary. Brimstone equips an incendiary grenade launcher where he shoots off a grenade that will explode into a giant area of fire once it comes to a rest. An ability I forgot to mention in the beginning is the Stim Beacon. You can throw down a Stim Beacon that will increase your movement speed. Not only that, but it will also increase your fire rate on your gun. You can use this in situations where you have to turn the corner and shoot. Doing the faster fire rate will benefit you and will most likely make you get the kill. And now for Brimstone's ultimate ability, it is called Orbital Strike. Much like Brimstone's smoke ability, Brimstone will open up his map and choose a certain location on it. From there on, this ability will do high damage and it will shoot from up in the sky down into the specific area. Now I should cover Brimstone, so let's go ahead and move on. Up next we have Cypher, and this first ability is called Trapwire. Cypher places down a device that acts as a trapwire. Whenever an enemy hits it, their location will be exposed and they will be dazed for a short period of time. Apart from that, they can also be picked up and redeployed. Cypher's next ability is called Cyber Cage. Cypher tosses forward a small gadget that can turn into a circular cage. This will decrease enemies' visions, so they will not be able to see through it, and it slows enemies that pass through it. Cypher's next ability is called Spy Cam. Cypher, as you have just seen, he throws out his camera onto the wall that he has access to. From here on, he can shoot out a dart that will highlight enemies if they are hit by the dart. Cypher's last ability, which is also his ultimate ability, is called Neutral Thief. When you kill an enemy, you can throw out your hat to them, which will reveal enemies' positions in the map. And now we're on to Jett. I do want to mention that this character is pretty straightforward to play, however the way you play her makes her really viable. With her movement and overall her abilities, she can be pretty strong. And as you currently begin seeing, I'm using Jett's Cloud Burst, where she instantly throws forward a projectile that can expand into a cloud of smoke for cover. Many people don't know that you can hold down the interaction button with that ability and you can gain control of it. Her next ability is really straightforward, so let's go ahead and knock it out. Jett's next ability is called Updraft. And like I said, it's really straightforward, so basically all she does is propel herself upward into the sky. Even though it's really straightforward, this ability can be paired up really well with her Tailwind ability, which as you just saw is her dash. One thing I forgot to mention about Jett is that she can fall down slower by holding down your spacebar or your jumping button when holding onto it. And lastly, we have Jett's ultimate ability, which is called Blade Storm. And I'd like to say that there are 2 ways to use Blade Storm. There's the single fire, which is extremely accurate, or there's the burst mode, which is less accurate, but you will have a higher chance of killing someone close range. And now we're on to Killjoy. First ability we're going to be talking about in Killjoy is her grenade. This grenade is called Nano Swarm. Pawns standing on it, such as Brimstone's fire, will cause you damage. Next up, we have her alarm bot. This alarm bot will explode when enemies go within the circle radius that it has. Not only that, but if they are damaged by it, they will become vulnerable to more damage. Not only that, but it can also be recalled, so if you happen to rotate across the map, you can always recall it. Killjoy's next ability is called Turret, and it's pretty straightforward. Killjoy sets down a turret that can shoot within a 180-degree cone, and this ability can also be recalled. Killjoy's last ability, which is also her ultimate, is called Lockdown. Keep in mind, Killjoy's ultimate does have a cooldown that not only you and your allies will be able to see, but so will the enemy team. Enemies that are hit with Killjoy's ultimate will have a movement debuff and also be trapped inside for 8 seconds. The first ability we're going to talk about is called Shrouded Step. This gives you a small icon on the floor where you will be teleporting forward to. And the best way to possibly utilize this is to teleport to a higher location to then get the drop on people. Doing so, you will get that damage on your enemies as they will not know where you're at, and you will see them as they enter the room. The next ability that Omen has in his kit is called Paranoia. He sends forward a shadow projectile straight forward that reduces people's visions. Not only that, but it can also go through walls. This next ability is a little bit challenging at first to use, but once you do get the hang of it, it should be pretty simple. It's called Dark Cover. Omen opens up a replica of the map, and with this he will open up an indicator saying the distance of how far you can shoot it. With using your left and right mouse buttons, you will be able to determine the distance. Be careful not to use your arrow keys or your moving keys to control it, because you yourself will be moving while you're using this ability. The last ability in Omen's kit is called From the Shadows. He equips a tactical map, which from there he can choose a certain location on the map to teleport to. While teleporting, he will have a small time window where he can choose to cancel his teleport if there are enemies around him. This allows you not only to have that great mobility across the map, but to also scout the area. And now we're on to Phoenix. The first ability we're going to be talking about with Phoenix is his ability called Blaze. Blaze is a wall of fire that can provide cover, and it can also heal you if you stand in it with Phoenix. One thing that people may forget, such as with Jet's ability, you can control this wall. You can guide it and bend it to however you prefer, or to however it suits you better in the current situation that you may be in. One ability that I forgot to get footage for was Hot Hands. Hot Hands can be exactly as Brimstone's Incendiary Grenade. He shoots it onto the floor, but he can stand in it and regain health if he is missing some. This next ability is going to be called Curveball. Phoenix pulls out a flame orb that can be curved left or right, depending on whether you hit left or right on your mouse. And lastly, we have Phoenix's ultimate ability called Run It Back. Phoenix sets down a marker which he will instantly teleport back to if he dies or the time runs out. Next up, we do have Raze. The first ability I do want to talk about is Boombot. Raze will send forward a drone that will go in a straight line. It can bounce off of walls and will continue straight forward. It will lock onto an enemy if he is within the straight line that is navigated by the Boombot, and it will explode. The next ability we are going to talk about is her Blast Pack. Raze throws down forward a small explosive device that will knock her up, and it would also do damage to enemies if they are within the proximity. However, Raze will not take damage, but she will take fall damage if she is launched too high up in the air. Her next ability is pretty straightforward and is called Paint Shells. The easiest way to explain this ability is a grenade, but it's a cluster grenade. Once it explodes, there will be smaller grenades coming off of it that will also deal damage. And lastly, we have her ultimate, which is called Showstopper. She equips a rocket launcher that she can shoot, which does massive damage in an area. Her ultimate ability can be paired up really well with her blast pack, and it is common to see someone use both of their blast packs to get better mobility before shooting their rocket launcher. And now we're on to Reyna. She is a bit more complicated than the previous agents, but let's go ahead and get right into her. The next ability we're going to talk about is called Leer. She sends forward a small eye projectile that will blind enemies if they look in that general direction. After killing an enemy, there will be an orb placed on their body. With Devour, you can absorb that health and use it on yourself. Upon killing an enemy, they will drop a purple orb.
They will cower! Blindfolds!
Can either devour or dismiss, where you will instantly disappear using the ability for a short period of time. Reyna's ultimate complements her abilities, as equipping her ultimate will instantly increase your fire rate, increase your equip and reload speed drastically, and scoring a kill will renew the timer on it. This makes it so you can be more aggressive while playing her, and have that extra reload speed and fire rate. And now we're moving on to Sage, and some of the things I do want to mention about Sage is that she's a healer. She's more of a supportive character rather than an aggressive one. The first ability, as you just saw me fall from the balcony, is Healing Orb. Basically what this is, it's a orb that can heal you or your allies, and it is pretty useful. Sage's next ability is called Barrier Orb. She equips an orb that can set down a barrier, which will outline on the floor before you place it. And lastly, we have Sage's Slow Orb, where she equips an orb that she can toss forward. It can bounce off of walls until it hits the floor and it expands into ice. And lastly, we have Sage's ultimate ability, which is called Resurrection. You will be able to bring back a dead ally, but be aware that whenever you're using this, you will be slowed, and the ally that you're resting cannot move until they are fully restored. Next character we're going to be talking about is Skye. Jumping right into Skye, her first ability is called Regrowth. She will equip these leaf-like things that will be able to heal your allies within the proximity. The next ability I'm going to be talking about is called Guiding Light, where she equips a hawk that she can launch forward and she can control as well. This hawk is going to act as a flashbang when you activate it again by hitting the interactive key with that ability again. Skye's third ability is called Trailblazer. She can transform into a tiger to seek out enemies, and she can also lunge at them. When she lunges at them, she's gonna do damage to them and also concuss the enemy. When using this ability, you will be stuck in place, so be careful and make sure to use this ability in a safe place. Skye's ultimate ability, and the last ability we're going to talk about, is called Seekers. Her ultimate sends forward 3 patches of grass, leaves, whatever you want to call it, and it's gonna look for the 3 closest enemies. When upon reaching them, they will make your enemy nearsighted and not be able to hold those long lines of sight. And now we're on to Viper. You may notice the lineup of her abilities. This is her poison meter. When your poison is all drained, your abilities will not work, such as your smoke cloud and wall of smoke. And the first ability we're going to be talking about with Viper is her snake bite, where she equips a chemical canister into her launcher, which then she fires, and upon hitting the floor it will spread out and cover that area. If you step on it, you'll be more vulnerable to damage, and you will also take damage by standing on it. Moving on, as you just saw me pick it up twice, this is Viper's Poison Cloud. She throws forward a small gadget that can then expand into a big cloud burst that can be activated multiple times. And with that being said, it can either be thrown or tossed, depending on what suits you better at the current situation that you may be in. And lastly, we have Viper's ultimate ability, which is called Viper's Pit. Viper shoots out toxins in every direction, allowing her to get a bunch of cover. Not only that, but while enemies are inside of this smoke cloud, their overall health will be reduced, and so will their overall range vision, making them easier targets for you to pick off while they're inside your smoke cloud. Up next we have Sova, and the first ability we're going to talk about is this Owl Drone.
Take flight.
What this does is that Sova sends forward a drone that he can control and shoot out of with a tracer round. This tracer round will spot enemies through walls and make an outline of them.
Take flight.
The next 2 abilities that we're going to be talking about consist with Sova's bow.
Shock
The
dart.
ability we're going to talk about is the shock bolt. He equips a shock bolt that he then sends flying forward, and it does damage if it hits enemies. The next ability consisting of the bow will be the recon bolt. He equips a recon bolt that he shoots forward, and this will
Revealing
kill
area.
enemies if they are hit with the line that is sent out by the bolt. Sova's ultimate ability is called Hunter's Fury. He equips the bow and shoots 3 long-range piercing energy blasts through the wall. Enemies will be revealed if they are hit by the line, and this ability can be used up to 3 times. Up next we have Yoru, which is one of the newer agents in the game, and we will be talking about him now. The first ability I want to talk about with Yoru is called Fake Out. You can send forward footsteps that will make noise and mimic those footsteps that are created by you. The next ability I want to talk about is called Blindside. He equips a dimensional orb, which he then launches forward that can bounce off of walls before exploding and acting as a flash. Yoru's next ability is called Gatecrash. He equips an orb that he can either send forward or set in place, which he can then teleport to. And lastly, Yoru's ultimate is called Dimensional Rift. Much like Reina, when she phases, she goes to a different dimension. Well, when Yoru enters his Dimensional Rift, he is invisible to the plain eye and can only be seen if he is close to you. And now we're on to the last agent in the game, which is also the newest agent in the game, introducing Astra. One of the first things you're going to notice is that you can set down stars. These stars can have multiple functions, as you can decide what to do with them. The first ability that I start using is called Gravity Well. I activate the star to pull not only enemies in, but myself in. Enemies that are pulled in will be vulnerable to damage and be slowed. The next one I will be showing is the nebula. The nebula is a smoke cloud that can be formed by one of your stars. There is one more ability that I did not get clear footage for, which is the Nova Pulse. Nova Pulse acts as a concussion and affects all the players that are within that area. And lastly, we have the second part of her ult, which is the giant wall. This wall not only blocks bullets, but it heavily dampens the audio, making it harder for enemies to hear you from the other side. And that should clear all of the agents in Valorant. Thank you all for watching till the end, and make sure to leave a like if you enjoyed it. Otherwise, have a good day.